Thank you for keeping us informed.
It's
appropriate.
Okay.
Thanks, no, you get it.
I'll take it. I do need it.
Okay. Keeping us.
Great. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Legislative Committee for the City of Salem for March 13th, 2026. I'm Julie Hoy, the mayor.
Linda Nishioka, Ward 2, serving as alternate.
Vanessa Wright, Ward 7.
Many ways that. And Councilor Gwen, is she here?
She's not here.
Actually, not on there.
And Linda, are you here for Dr. Brown? Okay. All right.
I can be here for both of them.
You can. You're bona fide.
All that said, a brief federal update. Brief. It was written here for me. That's not my idea. For Mark Diedrich and Terry Hubert, please.
Mark, you want to start?
Sure. Hello, everyone. How are you? Welcome. Going to be really good to be here with you all. We have been watching you all race through the state session for the last month, which has been kind of an interesting exercise from us on this side of the country. On the federal side, we've entered, I would say, probably our kind of among our busiest times though over the last couple of weeks here. So I've been working with the city staff to put together the city's appropriations requests and trying to meet various deadlines on both the House with Andrew Salinas and our two senators. I've had a number of meetings with staff from both sides of the Capitol as well on kind of these different projects and working to get kind of everything turned in on that. The transition from basically finishing FY26 appropriations, all 11 appropriations bills except for DHS have been passed and signed into law. DHS is shut down currently, and that bill remains unpassed. They've attempted, I think, to pass it in the Senate, to bring it up and pass it in the Senate 4 times, all of which have failed. But they've transitioned from that into full on, even though that's not finished yet, into FY27, and that's kind of what we're working through right now. The appropriations committees will soon be bringing their bills up, and hopefully with our projects included. And those are kind of the main things we've been working on. There's been a little bit of movement, I think, towards some of the major authorization bills, but nothing that's been really super imminent when it comes to stuff I think that's really of interest to the city, predominantly the service transportation bill, which I know they are working on, but they're not to the point where they're actually going to be trying to pass that or to move that through. So we've been, like I said, we've been working on appropriations and getting ready to see the mayor back here on Monday.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Likewise.
I wonder if since Jessica's not here, if we want to just brag for a second about Jessica and how cool she is.
She was great. We had her in town for a meeting with Salinas's office this week. Really was a thank you message of appreciation of the earmark that they got for the housing complex, the energy generation, and it was a really great meeting. Jessica is so enthusiastic and so good about this stuff. The Salinas people were very happy about it. They are actually going to be they're planning a ceremonial check presentation at the facility. The day has moved around. I haven't kept track of which day it is because we're not going to be out there. I just didn't really follow the days moving. I think it's going to be the end of this month when they're going to do that out there with the Congresswoman, and that will give the residents a chance to interact with her and present her with that big card that they made and stuff. So it should be a really good event and exciting. And Courtney, I think you're on that email, or you may have been dropped from it. We'll make sure that you're in the loop as to when it happens.
It's okay. It's mostly important to include Tammy.
Okay.
But we'll get there when that happens. Some things get moved a lot until they don't. And when they stop moving, we'll let you know. I don't remember either, sorry, forgive me, if either one of you mentioned the 2 appropriations that we are seeking. Should I do that super fast?
I only mentioned that we were submitting them, but no, I did not go into detail, so go for it.
So as you all have directed us, the two top projects that we're seeking federal funding for are WVCC, a relocation for the 32 police and fire agencies that we serve, a space that can also be an integrated emergency operations center. So that is going pretty well. We have gotten all the required letters, and I think I may have mentioned that OEM problem is not a problem. I don't know if I did, but anyway, we've gotten all the required letters of support, and they've been submitted and everybody's happy. I've had a couple follow-up calls from staff, but it feels really good. The second one is South River Road. And in that case, we're not going after a big retaining wall. We're instead going after some sort of an innovation around how to help the soil stay where it is and the rocks stay where they are.
Interesting.
With some more detailed geotechnical analysis,
Oh.
which is beyond me, but better understand how we can help the whole hill stay there by doing something different than a big.
Putting a big rock wall up.
Right. Because as you are aware, there's property just right adjacent.
Yes, there is.
And so it's minimal. We think it's less disruptive to do something that would
Let's
help the wall stay.
less problematic for the
Yeah.
houses that are right there.
Exactly, and it doesn't impact the size of the roadway or biking through there or anything. So that's what we're looking at, those two projects. So far fairly receptive. One of the things that I don't know if Terry or Mark have mentioned is that they help us set up briefings with all the staffers to pitch our projects and get advice and recommendations for how to make the projects more successful when they go through the process. And so we work together because their success is also ours, and it works really well.
Worth every penny.
Yeah, so those projects are in at both levels, and so all is well.
And this week when Jessica and I were in, along with, is it Nicole Courtney?
Nicole is, yeah.
Yeah, we did. I took a minute in that meeting to touch on both of those projects and to put a pitch in, and they were well received by the Salinas folks as well.
And then when you're there with NLC, you'll have a chance to reiterate our messages. So the more people hear, the better. So it's all going really well. And just for clarification, Jessica and Nicole were both at a national housing conference.
Yes, I remember.
And so that gave them an opportunity to also just see and be seen and raise awareness and appreciation for our last appropriations.
And the
So-
timing, I would say the timing for the mayor's trip back here and Jessica's trip back here is perfect because it's after we've submitted the projects to the individual offices before their deadline to submit the projects to the House Appropriations Committee. So it's a good window where they're making up their mind right now, and the staff are preparing to brief their bosses and make their recommendations right now on what requests they're going to make. So timing is you never know that far in advance exactly when that spot's going to hit, but it's going to be right during that time frame. So it's a great time to be kind of putting in a final pitch for the city's priorities.
That's awesome. Thank you. So when I'm there, is it a pitch or an at-bat? Just curious.
A little of both.
Okay, good. I just want to be ready. Have you guys introduced Inez? I see you have a new person with you.
We maybe I don't know that we've had a long introduction for Inez, but she is our newest legislative assistant. You'll remember Janet used to be on these calls, and she's moved along. And Inez is really fantastic. She can give you her own story, but she has spent a lot of time living actually in Salem.
Oh, wow.
Inez, you want to take a minute?
Hear me okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. Like we said, my name is Inez. I lived in Salem for 5 years while I was attending Willamette University. Moved out to DC after I graduated, and I'm happy to be here. Happy to help wherever I can.
Awesome. Thank you.
And you'll meet her next week, Mayor.
Beautiful. Anything else on the federal level?
I have a question on the federal level.
Go ahead.
What's our process for federal grants? So I know we have some public safety grants that we've applied for and successfully received over the years. The fire chief told me he is considering pursuing a federal grant specifically for a REACH team. there's a lot of, the REACH team as mobile crisis outreach is a very grantable provision. There's a lot of interest in mobile outreach at the federal level, the state level, even the regional level. And I'm just curious, historically, my memory's not too great on this. My sense is that our federal lobbyists have helped us with the success rate of the grants that we apply for. And so, looking ahead, I'm just curious. I always want to be able to tell people, are we looking under every rock and stone, even for some temporary relief for some of the programs that we have in mind? And I'm just wondering what our status is on that.
Yeah, typically what will happen is before we as staff apply for federal grants, council will see it on the agenda and we will get your permission, because usually it obligates some sort of a match. And we need council approval to be able to do that. So the first step, you will see it on your agenda. And then once we know that we have permission to go, we do rely heavily and work together with our federal lobbyists to help us advance those priorities once they're legitimate. And also you guys, this is no small thing, but we also get letters of support from our delegation, and that's a really critical factor. And we get a lot of help for that too. So yes, our first step, and in fact, I think there are a couple of FAA related grants that are going to be showing up on your second meeting in March. And that will be just an indication. So as soon as something bubbles up through staff, it comes to you, and then you'll know, and we'll marshal all of our resources to advance the opportunity.
And I see Brian is there in case he wanted to come in with anything.
I would just throw in there, just to dovetail on what Courtney said, we also are monitoring all of the grants that are being issued as NOFOs for the federal government, and we're very aware of what your priorities are and your projects and potential projects and needs. So we're always flagging for the city anything that we think might even remotely make sense to look at. There are a lot of grants at the federal level, and a lot of them have matches. Some of them work and match better to what your needs are than others. And so it doesn't make sense to go after all of them. And so we'll work with Courtney to support her in sorting out which ones match up well and make sense.
Before we leave the subject of fire, Brian, do you want to weigh in? Jason Pulley, I'm going to hit on you for WRDA in a second. Brian?
Yeah, so we are looking at a Safe Streets grant that the city applied for last year through Public Works, and we're teaming up with Marion County, and we would like to team up with Marion County. We talked to them last year about this, and we're bringing on a separate consultant that has been very successful in writing these grants, and I think they're producing a 72% success rate. So we are going down the path where we're still doing the research, and it's upwards of $2.3 million is what we're hoping to when it comes to a grant award. Polk County was successful using this company and getting one, Polk County Fire. And so we are definitely moving forward with the success of the REACH team and everything we're doing. We do think we have a strong possibility of moving forward and getting this awarded in conjunction with the consultant. We just are finalizing the contract now to bring that consultant on, and we will begin to work fiercely with Public Works, but we're going to use Marion County first and then bring Public Works on if we're awarded at the end of it.
What is the timeline on that, Brian?
I don't have that time frame yet, ma'am. We'll get more information once the contract is signed with the contractor. Him and I have been speaking weekly on the conjunction of what we're doing together. I just don't want to talk out of turn and give you wrong information.
Awesome, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian. So while we're on the subject of how symbiotic our relationship is, forwards, backwards, forwards, I don't remember if we shared about the WRDA, Jason Pulley. Do you want to step in and just let everybody know what that is? And we got a heads up from Summit that it was going to happen. And do you want to explain what that means?
Sure. So WRDA, the Water Resources Development Act, comes out every couple years. It's really the main funding vehicle for the Army Corps of Engineers for construction projects, navigation projects, modifications to existing Corps projects. Hang on just a second. Okay. So we were contacted from Salinas's office and we put together a request for I don't know if you call it a request, but we put together a list of projects that we were undertaking as part of the Detroit Deep Drawdown. And so where that sits, I think the total request that we put in was for $50 million to cover a wide range of things that we are trying to do to prepare for the drawdowns right now and in the future. So at the moment, from what I understand, Congress is collecting project authorizations from members and getting policy proposals from other agencies and stakeholders and states. And then hearings are going to, I think they actually already started. Right now, they're looking at national priorities for the Corps of Engineers, and we assume at some point we'll be asked for additional information for the projects that we requested as those project authorizations starts making their way to the committees in both the House and the Senate.
So my simplistic version, Jason, because I make everything too simple, my simplistic version is that this is the first step that you need to take in order to be eligible for funding in the next couple of years. So we're getting ourselves in the bill so that as grants come out, we already have the pre-authorization.
Mhm.
That's how I understand it.
Right, and I think that's an important point to make, Courtney, which is the WRDA itself is not an appropriation, it's an authorization, right? And so it makes it much easier to secure federal dollars if a project is already authorized in the Water Resources Development Act rather than coming in without any sort of pre-work.
Thank you so much, Jason. I want to notice that Councilor Gwynn has joined us.
Yes, thank you.
So are there any other, we're just in the federal stuff, we're sharing information. Yes.
Yeah, federal grants. There were some that got caught up in the administration's decision to put an abrupt pause on all kinds of government spending. And I was curious to know what the status is of the Pringle Creek related grant that we had.
I don't know the status of the Pringle Creek related.
Because it was for a walkway, if I'm not mistaken, right? This feels like a Julie question, a Julie Morgan question. So
I'll turn to you.
Okay, well, Julie Hanson now.
Julie Hanson, sorry.
I'm with Public Works, and the Pringle Creek project is not at all affected because that was formula funds, federal money that went through ODOT. It was awarded by ODOT, and so it has those provisions were not associated with that. And so that project is moving forward. We have a contract for design. We are actually, I think yesterday we went to the Salem Parks and Recreation Advisory Board and talked to them. We're going to be issuing a survey soon and doing some outreach. So fortunately, those funds are not impacted by the potential issues at the federal level.
That's really tight. For some reason, I thought they were. Was there another grant I'm thinking of that was impacted?
The Front Street design
Oh,
project.
that's
Front
right.
Street North. That
Yeah.
one is.
Okay.
Yes,
Is that still up in the air now?
that's still up in the air.
That's too bad. Okay, thank you for the clarification.
It's in general vicinity.
Front Street North. and
Oh,
downtown.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's a tricky one.
It's not gone, but
No.
it's not here.
Right, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
It's up in the air.
That was
It's
my
not,
understanding.
it's pulled back, so that's good. It's just, we haven't actually got the agreement yet.
Okay, great.
We'll live in limbo. Limbo's better than novo.
Well, it happens. There were so many organizations in Oregon that were in limbo for a long time, and some have gotten their funding back and some didn't. It just kind of seemed very random. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we're all good on the federal side. You all welcome to hang out, as you know. Okay. So Justin, would you like to entertain us?
Well, sure. I don't know how entertaining it is, but
Song and dance.
I don't know how entertaining it is, but I've got these sweet new glasses. Thank you to Courtney for rescuing me here with these.
Oh, good.
Yeah, hey, thanks.
Which is the steel gray of the sweatshirt, so.
Nice. Thank you,
You guys
Courtney.
playing this.
Me being
You
able
smiled
to
and
see, I probably could have got away. Yeah, or the mayor will hold it up. Well, mayor and councilors and staff, welcome to our March 9th little update. Real quick, I'm gonna do a quick wrap up. I think everybody's got my notes now, which is good, so you guys can see that ahead of time. I'll talk a little bit about this awesome report. So if any anybody's having problems sleeping here in the next month or two, you can just pull this out and read that before you fall asleep. Hopefully it'll help. And then I want to talk about a great conversation I had this morning with one of our current senators, the chair of Senate Revenue, and kind of start talking about next steps and how we treat this next interim period, essentially as our, kicking off a campaign to get where we need to be on funding. So with that, let's go into that quick wrap up. You guys saw the legislature actually adjourned Friday afternoon at about 4 o'clock on the 6th. And as I've constantly been talking about, the following Tuesday, we had filing day, right? So you can see why these little short sessions really get political, both on the front end in the primaries for May, but also on the back end for what's going to happen in November. So they were intended to be a little 5-week look back, make technical fixes, make some budget adjustments. They've become much more, right? Trying to get people on the record for politics. That being said, I think it was somewhat successful, and we got out of there. At least we got some things we need. So with that, there were 300 bills introduced, 304 to be exact. 155 were still part of the mix towards the end of session. 107 of those bills were assigned to our city staff. 55 of those were active upon adjournment, so about half of what was introduced. And then 7 bills that had approved position by city council. There were 5 of those still active. We'll go down here and I'll mention what passed, what didn't. As we look at our funding priorities, our first priority, the Safe, Clean, and Healthy Capital City Act, with $2.75 million that we're trying to get year in and year out, did not pass. Again, that's a little more of a difficult ask in a 5-week session because it's very operations based, right? Versus capital. Now let's go to our second request, which was $1.35 million for the resiliency and emergency capability and the terminal master plan at the airport. We did get $1.35 million allocated through Senate Bill 5701 and House Bill 5204. That was a nice thing in this short session.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because the first way I understood it is that there was about 4.1 allocated to local governments.
Yeah.
And we got 1.35 of that, which is a lot.
That is correct. And we had little numbers and we had percentages and stuff, but we didn't, it was a public meeting. So we want to make sure we're accurate with everything. But yeah, if you looked at about 4.1 in capital requests that came in this short session Christmas tree bill, we got 1.35 of that.
I'm sorry, what was the total in capital?
Like 4.1.
4.1 million. Oh,
yeah. So we essentially got
not statewide.
A pretty big percentage of that for capital projects this go around. So we'll have much more detail on that once we get our final draft done. But very, very, very good. So again, if you guys see Representative Mannix, please thank him. If you see Michelle Moon, both of them did a ton of legwork on this. And for a representative in such a severe minority in Salem, in the Capitol, to get that done speaks really highly of Representative Mannix. One, political intelligence. He's been around forever. You guys have heard I voted for him 3 times back in when I didn't even realize who our legislators were, right? But him being able to come back, be a part of that process, his relationships that he has established on both sides of the aisle are very helpful to him. And he's an extremely strategic and wise legislator. So when you do see him, I left him a rambling message this morning of thanks. As I sit down to write my little hand thank yous to all the folks that were such a big part of this, I just wanted to make sure to also reach out and talk to them as well. So if you guys get the opportunity, please say thank you, because that's wonderful. In looking at the rest of the things that we were supportive of, Water Professionals Appreciation, enrolled, the governor signed, that one's done. These were all bills approved by you, council. Affordable Housing Preservation Bonds enrolled. That was House Bill 4036. The Waymo stuff was in committee upon adjournment, so I know Julie's happy with that, or at least will be part of the discussion. That's coming at some point, right? So we got to get that. 4094 unused paid time off died in committee. The OGEC food and beverage stuff, Mark, that you're probably tired of, right? Enrolled, just awaiting for the governor's signature. Same with the Oregon Government Ethics Committee's public meetings, that's enrolled, awaiting the governor's signature as well. And then finally, 1567 affordable housing mixed income enrolled, awaiting the governor's signature. So pretty good on things we all supported. And then the whole last section in your little brief there, folks, are the immigration things. And you can just see, I won't spend a bunch of time going through that, but yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just want to make sure, 4161 did pass?
Yes.
Okay,
It-
and 4177.
They both passed and they're just sitting on the governor's desk. She's got
Okay. So
30
it is
days
what
to
it is.
pass. Great. And then the whole status of immigration bills, you guys can go through this stuff. Several things passed. The masking SJR 203 did not, it says here in committee upon adjournment, that went to another bill. So that masking thing did happen. I know that was a priority for Representative Anderson. And the other one, National Guard stuff, was still sitting on the Senate President's desk upon adjournment. So everything else there is enrolled and awaiting the governor's signature. That's our brief little update. And then next steps, why I'm so excited. I had a nice conversation with Senator Broadman this morning. If people don't know Senator Broadman, he's a former city councilor from Bend, but he's also a tribal attorney. So I worked with him for years. He worked out of a firm in Washington. I think it's Galinda. I can't remember the other name of the firm, but anyway, he was Cow Creek's attorney for years. So he and I have worked together for a lot of years, have a good relationship. And I talked to him about our frustration on being a capital city, wanting to do improvements, wanting to enhance our public safety. Basically, I was asking him, as we turn the corner and look at next session, next cycle, I was asking him, fundamental questions of, can we start something in the Senate revenue, or does it have to start in the House if it's revenue raising, and all of that, asking about that. He quickly said, oh, wow, like a payment in lieu of taxes. I said, yes, Senator, exactly right. He then said, but because you're a capital city, there should be other ways to approach this. So I thought that was very, very encouraging. He then committed to reach out to Senator Patterson and work with her on something that we could do for next cycle. So even though we didn't get this done, and Senator Patterson could have then used this to say, hey, here's what we're doing to improve conditions in and around the Capitol, enhance public safety, et cetera. She can still use that, hopefully, throughout this election cycle to say, this is what we're working on. This is what I've been going down this road. So I'm encouraged by that. He had several ideas on that. I said, we also have other mechanisms. We've got the Capital Planning Commission. We've got some other ways. We've got the Attorney General who has safety concerns on that side of the Capitol as well. We've got what we did with State Street. So we still have all these things that we're working on that can hopefully get us to this continual thing. He asked for the same thing that everybody asked for, like when the mayor and I were with the co-chair at the Ways and Means last session. We need a narrative. We need to know why. We need to know what is going to happen with this. We need to know the difficulties you're having now, how this solves the problem, and how this moves forward as a capital city and a company. The other things he wanted was backup on what do other capital cities do. So we've got the examples of Olympia. We've got Albany, New York. We've got these other places where there's dedicated funding to that. We've also got statutes on the books from like 1969 with our water agreements and our sewer agreements. So we're going to work really hard in these next couple months to create that narrative, essentially create a campaign how we're going to approach this. And as everybody around this table knows, we're going into Goodwill season, as Terry and Mark know as well. Goodwill season means I'll be meeting with a lot of legislators with private opportunities to kind of lay out where we want to be next legislative cycle. So we're going to take advantage of the campaign cycle. We're going to get this narrative down and essentially run a campaign to figure out how we get this done next cycle. So I'm encouraged by that. It's not a ton of money. It's not a ton of money, but it's critical to us. And, I think I threw out something like it's a drop of Tabasco in a 5-gallon tank of water, right? It's not exactly going to turn over what's going on here in Oregon, and it protects safety. The other comments he said, just off the cuff as somebody not from Salem, he goes, I know it's probably construction and everything, but boy, it's just, the Capitol's not looking great. Looks great inside now, but between everything getting pulled down and everything being taken out, the perimeters is where he also had some concerns. It's like, it just doesn't look great. Now that'll change once they get the parking garage, get those cars off the street so there's more availability.
And then Wilson Park is gonna be redone.
Yes, and we'll have that lane down on State. I mean, it's all kind of fitting together. And those safety concerns that Brad Haynes at Legislative Administration has, I mean, I think it all fits really well together. It's just upon us to tell that story, and it's upon me to go out and sell that story during the campaign.
So first of all, I'm very happy to hear that. I saw Senator Patterson at a neighborhood association meeting last night. So I know that she's very engaged in our community, and I'll be sure to mention this next time I talk to her and say how much I appreciate her carrying the water for us on that. You know, I think a picture is worth 1,000 words. When our legislators are in the building, it's typically not when the biggest protests or other rallies and things are happening. It's when they're out of the building. Most protests are on the weekends, right? To accommodate people who come from all over the state. And if we have 1 or 2 pictures of some of like the really big, gnarly protests that we've had down at the Capitol, one picture show, and there are pictures, you can find it. There were protests that turned violent where our public safety officers were assaulted. There was a protest where some people started wildly spraying bear spray, and that is an assault on a public safety officer. That's a felony crime in the state of Oregon. So, I mean, if there's a couple of pictures, you could just Google them from old newspaper articles. You don't even have to go out there and create new ones, but there are plenty of images of our public safety officers intervening, putting themselves in harm's way, and that's where this money is going, for the privilege of hosting people's First Amendment freedoms. And anyway, so I just think that if you added that to your dossier, along with just, you know, having Josh crunch some numbers on what the response is looking like. I know Councilor Nishioka has mentioned in the past, you know, are we invoicing? Are we keeping track of the overtime costs? I've mentioned this too to staff. We've had, I can't remember which rally it was, because there's like one every other week down there. But I remember it was a big one, and I don't remember if I emailed the chief or Christian or whomever. It's like, are you guys keeping track of the overtime specific to these things? Because I understand anyone could probably pull overtime in payroll, right? But that's not what I'm asking for. I'm asking for the overtime that is specific to all of these rallies and other demonstrations. And I don't even know how to. Well, I suppose you could also log the other 911 calls pretty easily, because every 911 call has a location associated with it. So you could pull all the 911 calls that we responded to by location and just set the location to be within that Capitol Mall area. And then you could really start showing some data, how the volume of calls, how much officer time or firefighter time was preoccupied by that, how much overtime. You know, you could put that in a 1-pager with 1 or 2 snapshots of these really busy and sometimes risky protests. Because yeah, sometimes people, they get so emotional, they get upset. Some people open carry weapons at demonstrations. It can be terrifying. And so anyway, I just think that the combination of those stats and those photos could really help sell our message.
Agreed. And that behind the scenes stuff, the opportunity cost of having to schedule, then bring somebody else in to do the normal duties on top of overtime pay, all that needs to be part of that narrative and part of that story. Then that goes in with the other fact that he picked up on real quick when talking to the senator this morning. It's not just this at this time. I mean, I think the impacts of these rallies and what happens well into the future is why it has to be ongoing. Plus, we're not just another municipality with property off the rolls.
Yeah.
Yes, we have property off the rolls, but it's not like U of O. It's not like Western Oregon. It's not like Corvallis, because they can charge fees for their public safety. This is different. And you look at our inventory of property off the rolls, those were state buildings, right?
Yeah.
Those and they are still. So we do have those separations. So when we're telling that story, this is what differentiates us. It's more state property off the rolls. This is what differentiates us because we're a capital city. This is what differentiates us because here's what we're having to put in on these protests and rallies. So I think that those numbers, those facts, those parts of the narrative, I think will go a long way in this campaign to say, we're not out here asking for more. We're actually showing you why we need more and how that benefits not just this city, but how that benefits where the state's work gets done.
Yep.
So,
I like that.
and I'm just trying to find the right champion to do that. Obviously, Senator Patterson, it's her district, that makes all the sense in the world. But we also need figures on revenue. We also need folks that understand, he's coming at this with a city council background too. So, I mean, I think that's all there. And I think we kind of have to push all our chips in on that going into this 27 long session to really get that done. But we got to do all that legwork before we even get in the building.
To your list of examples, that are pictures worth 1,000 words, I would add timber unity. That took up blocks of big trucks all day, round and round and round and round. And that has an impact.
Yeah, for sure.
And as Justin said, a preliminary impact, all of the work that goes into understanding, what they have to do for blocking off streets and prep work and everything else.
Mhm.
So I see, I'm just looking to the future. When will we continue to have monthly meetings until session starts again? Because I see the 3 dates that you've marked out.
Well, that was my question, actually, is whether that's of value to you all. The session is over. We need to do this prep work. We have, I think, federal things are going the way they should be going. We are doing a good job there. So I was going to ask whether you all wanted to meet in March, in April, or if you wanted just to wait until May. So that was an open question.
So
the next step for us, by the way, for staff, is the report that is draft. Somehow, this is our closure of the session.
okay,
And we transmit that to council. And so there will be another legislative moment at council. And that would either be the last week of March or probably the first meeting in April. So I think that's 4/11, 4/14,
4/13.
something. So we would still have an opportunity to rehash the session at council, and then just what the next step is for this group is an open question for you.
I think it's reasonable to pause. Though this is now, I experienced the long session and I've experienced the short session. And the more we do to prepare, the better equipped we are when it's time to launch.
Yeah.
And then it all comes very fast. Whether over a short period of time or a long period of time, it's upon us. And I just, again, as I stated last year, I just want to be even more ready when we start again.
Yes.
And I think those can be incremental, kind of longer periods in between us meeting, because we're doing the groundwork and I'm doing the goodwill work out throughout the state. But then as soon as Labor Day hits, then you got to get back to like, okay, now the legislative calendar is going, we should probably start meeting monthly going into that session. So we're working September, October, November, December's, November and December, we all know because of the holidays, just like summer, there's no real point in doing that. But we definitely need to be more and more frequent going into January of next year. So.
Yes, and I think that you all have an interest in keeping up with things and what we're up to. And these kinds of reports are useful. So I was deferring to see what you all want.
I agree with the pause. I don't think I think now is if we're going to take a pause right after the session would be the time to do it before we're anywhere close to gearing back up for the next one, to the mayor's point.
So if, to that point, if what we're doing here is enough for prep for the 13th of April, then I'd say we could skip the March 27th meeting. And then if you felt that we needed to regroup for any reason in April, we could either keep that one or not. I think it depends partly on where the staff feel they might be as we are starting to prepare, review what didn't pass. I could see where we might meet once during the summer, at least before we hit the pavement in September. But that's just my sort of perspective, like you take a break because there's not much happening. At least for us, there's certainly stuff happening with staff.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense because one, and then as far as tools, you're gonna have the report from last session. You're gonna have our framework, our guiding principles. And with those two things together, I mean, it's like, okay, that gives us our direction as staff to like, here's how we're mapping out. Because there is more beyond just this $3 million funding we want, right? So then we start to hear what's bubbling on policy front, other funding that we may or may not need, capital stuff. And we just formulate it that way, and that gives us a little time to work and then start
So
streamlining all that in.
I could see potentially coming together in May, coming together in July, and then hit the road starting in September. So like skip the even, June and August.
When do ballots go out for you guys as candidates?
April.
The third,
End of
3
April.
weeks before, right? So
End of April.
and you all, I mean, obviously you all need to be focusing on your races. So, I mean, I wouldn't want to shoehorn something in there in May when you guys have
It would be after
more important stuff to be doing, right?
22nd.
Do leather and ribbon and grin and stuff that electeds do.
Well, we jumped to the calendar and I had one more thing to ask about with regard to the ask and how we ask and the narrative. Is it at all relevant in this effort to speak to the fact that a lot of state workers have not come back to work? We have empty properties, so our economy has suffered greatly from that.
Yeah.
I mean, the Safeway can tell you that, right? The restaurants and others can tell you that.
Yes, and it's so odd because as I go back through the, reports, we pulled this great big Harvard study that showed the value of investing in a capital city and the spinoff and the economic, multiplier of activity. We're not seeing that here. And I think it's based on what you're talking
It's
about, right?
$2.2 billion of properties not on the tax rolls, and when you don't make people go to work, there's no one to shop or dine or.
Yeah, we're losing a ton of
We're losing all
restaurants
the time.
downtown. Yeah, it's putting additional stress on us. And I think that's all part of the story. I mean, I think to me, that's very valuable to tell because not only as a Salem resident, somebody that works downtown, but I really see that, right?
Yeah.
When we have restaurants going out of business
You
all the
bet.
time, and we've got empty buildings and we've got stuff happening. So
Okay,
it'll be,
thank you.
I will say, however, the counterpoint that some legislators might raise is that, so you don't need as many daily public safety service calls. I mean, when my DOJ building was, all 3 floors were full, the statistical odds of someone having a heart attack or any kind of public safety issue happening, whether it's a fender bender or something, or someone gets hit by the railroad tracks, which happens from time to time, and which is horrible. I mean, I worry that argument carries a double-edged sword, right?
I think it always has.
Yeah.
I've been afraid to say it out loud because how much do they actually use the service?
yeah,
It's more about insurance also. It's knowing that if there is a problem, you're gonna have help and it's gonna be timely. So as much as I've held back in talking about that because I worried about not having enough statistics to support it,
right.
we need to paint the whole picture of the current dynamic of everything that we're dealing with at the city.
Yeah, I think we'll,
Some of building a campaign is building messages for the audience that you're approaching, and so all of this input has a place. It just may not be part of the basic message that we're
Yeah.
using all the time. It may be different targeted messaging. So reshaping this as a campaign, I think, gives us a lot more opportunity to imagine what it would take for each individual audience to better understand what we're talking about.
yes. And as we inventory, like Courtney said, we inventory all those messages. We figure out what's best, how do we attach that to the right audience? And, you've got primary messaging, you've got messaging underneath that. So, yeah, I'm excited about that.
Thank
But I think we've kind of got a, nice little fresh start here. And we didn't get zeroed out this last session. So
Yeah, right?
I'm really
That's
excited
nice.
about that. Yeah,
Good.
All right.
that's all I have, Courtney.
So what I think we'll do is a little calendar Jenga and you'll see things update. And so we'll be aiming for May 22nd. We'll have another staff person on board that will be prepared to help support our legislative efforts, which will be nice. And we will then look at July as a check-in point, make sure we're on target, on track. And September to start the work dispersing.
And if this narrative begins to form and input would be appreciated or valuable, don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah. We will. Good.
Thank you.
Anything else from?
Anybody have anything?